Ravi and Meera were the picture of newlywed bliss, arriving at a luxurious coastal resort in 2023 to celebrate what was meant to be the happiest week of their lives. Friends and family saw only smiles and laughter, unaware that beneath the surface, a dark storm was brewing. Ravi's quiet jealousy had been growing for months, unnoticed and unchecked, turning harmless glances and casual interactions into imagined betrayals. What should have been a dream honeymoon slowly transformed into a private nightmare, a place where obsession, rage, and control collided with tragedy. In the span of days, a paradise of sun and sand became the setting for a shocking crime that would forever change their lives and haunt those who followed the story. The wedding was celebrated with bright lights, smiling faces, and endless blessings from family and friends. Everyone believed the couple had found the kind of love that promised stability and pride. The groom appeared calm, respectful, and deeply devoted, while the bride was seen as gentle, hopeful, and full of life. Their marriage was arranged quickly, and within weeks they began planning a honeymoon meant to mark a fresh beginning. They chose a luxury seaside resort, famous for privacy and beauty, a place where newlyweds went to escape the noise of the world. Photos shared online showed happiness, elegant clothes, and warm sunsets that suggested a perfect union. Behind the images, however, small warning signs existed long before the trip began. The husband carried a quiet but intense jealousy that rarely showed on his face. He watched people closely and remembered things others forgot. Compliments from strangers bothered him, even when they were harmless. He never spoke openly about these feelings, choosing instead to let them grow in silence. The bride believed marriage would bring comfort and trust, and she ignored moments that felt strange or overly controlling. She focused on building a future and believed love required patience. When they arrived at the resort, everything seemed peaceful. The ocean was calm, the halls smelled of flowers, and staff welcomed them warmly. They explored the area, walked along the beach, and enjoyed meals under open skies. To outsiders, they looked like any other happy couple. Inside the room, though, the mood slowly shifted. The husband became distant, spending long moments staring from the balcony as if watching invisible threats. Each passing day added tension that could not be seen or heard. What was meant to be a dream honeymoon quietly became the setting for something dark, waiting to surface. As the honeymoon continued, the calm atmosphere of the resort began to clash with the growing darkness inside the husband's mind. He became increasingly alert to every movement around them, noticing strangers at the pool, waiters at the restaurant, and other guests passing by. Simple moments turned into sources of suspicion. A casual glance or a brief smile from his wife felt, to him, like a personal attack. He said nothing, allowing his thoughts to spiral without challenge. The silence between them grew heavy, replacing the excitement that once filled the trip. The wife remained hopeful, believing the tension was temporary stress or exhaustion. She focused on enjoying the beauty around her, unaware of how deeply his jealousy had taken root. She walked freely through open spaces, admired the scenery, and felt grateful for the chance to relax after the wedding. What she saw as normal behavior slowly fed his anger. In his mind, respect had been taken from him, and he began to believe control was slipping away. The more he tried to suppress his emotions, the more violent they became. On one particular evening, witnesses later remembered seeing the couple return to their room earlier than usual. Nothing about their appearance suggested danger. Security cameras recorded them entering the elevator, standing close, and disappearing behind closing doors. Inside the room, the peaceful setting of the honeymoon suite hid a growing storm. The husband's thoughts reached a breaking point, driven by imagined betrayal and wounded pride. Surrounded by luxury and silence, he convinced himself that extreme action was justified. The resort continued its nightly celebrations outside, unaware that behind one closed door, a terrible decision was about to change everything forever. The next morning, the resort woke to the sound of waves and distant laughter, unaware that a tragedy had already taken place. When housekeeping arrived at the honeymoon suite for routine service, repeated knocks went unanswered. Staff used a master key, expecting to find sleeping guests or a simple explanation. Instead, they discovered a scene of chaos and silence that instantly signaled something was terribly wrong. The bride lay motionless, her life already gone, and the room showed clear signs of violent struggle. Furniture was disturbed, personal items were scattered, and the atmosphere felt heavy with fear. Emergency services were called immediately, but there was nothing they could do. The woman's injuries revealed intense rage rather than a sudden accident. As authorities secured the area, panic quietly spread through the resort. Guests were moved away from the floor, hallways were closed, and rumors began to circulate. Staff members who had greeted the couple days earlier struggled to understand how a place designed for love and celebration had become a crime scene. The husband was nowhere to be found, and his absence quickly raised alarm. Investigators searched the room carefully, documenting every detail. The balcony door was open, and signs suggested the husband had left in a hurry. Security footage was reviewed, showing him exiting the building alone during the night. His disappearance transformed the case from a shocking death into a full investigation. Police contacted both families, delivering news that shattered their worlds. Outside the resort, reporters gathered, drawn by the disturbing story. What had started as a private tragedy now became public, and the honeymoon that promised happiness was forever remembered as the beginning of a horrifying mystery. The investigation moved quickly once police confirmed the husband had fled the resort. Officers reviewed hours of security footage, tracing his movements step by step. One camera near a side exit showed him leaving late at night, carrying a small bag and avoiding well-lit areas. His posture appeared tense and rushed, as if he feared being seen. From there, the trail grew thin, but investigators refused to assume he had vanished. Road checkpoints were set up, and nearby transport stations were alerted. The case drew national attention, placing pressure on authorities to act fast. A major breakthrough came through digital evidence. Phone records revealed that the husband's device had remained active after he left the resort. Cell tower data showed his signal moving slowly along the coastline, stopping briefly in small towns. Each connection helped police narrow the search area. Credit card activity added another layer, pointing to a remote location far from tourist routes. Investigators believed he was hiding, injured, and running out of options. Several days later, officers surrounded an abandoned guest house on the edge of a quiet village. Inside, they found signs of recent use, including discarded clothing and bloodstained bandages. The husband was discovered hiding in one of the rooms, weak and exhausted. He did not resist arrest. His capture ended the manhunt, but opened the door to deeper questions. Why had a newlywed turned to such violence? What thoughts drove him to destroy his own future? As he was taken into custody, the story shifted from escape to accountability, but the horror of what had happened could not be undone. The final stage of the case focused on understanding how a marriage that appeared normal had ended in such brutal violence. Investigators began speaking with relatives, friends, and co-workers for both sides. Slowly, a hidden pattern emerged. The husband had always shown signs of extreme possessiveness, but these moments were often dismissed as concern or cultural pride. He monitored behavior closely, questioned harmless interactions, and struggled with imagined disrespect. Over time, these thoughts hardened into obsession. The honeymoon did not create the violence. It simply removed all witnesses and boundaries. Psychological evaluations revealed deep insecurity and a belief that control equaled love. Experts explained how jealousy, when mixed with entitlement and rage, can turn deadly without warning. Evidence presented in court showed how small, meaningless actions have been twisted into justification for murder. The physical evidence, surveillance footage, and digital records formed a clear timeline that left no doubt about responsibility. The husband was convicted and sentenced to spend his life behind bars. For the victim's family, justice offered no relief. Their daughter, newly married and full of hope, was gone forever. Her story spread across media platforms, becoming a warning shared by true crime documentaries and social discussions. The resort eventually reopened, but the room where the crime occurred was never the same. What had once been advertised as a dream destination became linked to loss and fear. The case ended in a courtroom, but its message continued far beyond it, reminding the world that violence often hides behind smiles, silence, and carefully staged happiness. After the verdict, the case did not fade quietly. Public interest grew as details were examined and re-examined by analysts, psychologists, and crime reporters. Many questioned how such intense danger had gone unnoticed for so long. The husband's past was reviewed closely, revealing a life shaped by rigid beliefs about ownership and honor. Small controlling behaviors that once seemed insignificant were now seen as early warnings. Experts pointed out how these signs often appear harmless at first, allowing violence to grow without challenge. The story became a reference point in discussions about domestic abuse that hides behind tradition and appearances. The victim's life was slowly pieced together through photographs, school records, and memories shared by those who loved her. She was described as hopeful, independent, and excited about building a future. Her dreams had extended far beyond marriage, but they were cut short in a place meant for joy. Memorials were held, and her name became linked to awareness campaigns urging people to recognize silent danger. Her family chose to speak publicly, not for attention, but to prevent similar tragedies. Their grief turned into a mission to educate others about the cost of ignoring red flags. Years later, the case remained a powerful reminder within the true crime world. Documentaries revisited the events, focusing not only on the violence, but on the warning signs that came before it. The Honeymoon resort moved on, welcoming new guests who knew nothing of the past, yet the story lived on elsewhere. It stood as proof that evil does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it arrives quietly, wrapped in celebration, waiting for the moment when no one is watching. Even years after the tragic event, the story of the Honeymoon murder continued to haunt those connected to it. True crime communities and media outlets frequently revisited the case, dissecting every moment to understand how a simple glance could trigger such a deadly outcome. Analysts highlighted the husband's pattern of obsessive control, showing how unchecked jealousy and insecurity can escalate into irreversible violence. The case became a textbook example of how appearances can deceive. Outwardly normal relationships may conceal dangerous patterns that only surface under pressure. Legal experts examined the trial, noting how evidence such as digital footprints, surveillance videos, and witness testimonies created a detailed timeline that exposed every step of the husband's actions. The investigation also shed light on the role of resort security protocols and how minor oversights allowed the crime to occur unnoticed. Many argued that the tragedy could have been prevented if early warning signs had been recognized and addressed. Schools, local communities, and advocacy groups began using the case to educate the public about the hidden dangers of possessive behavior and controlling tendencies in relationships. The victim's memory became a symbol for advocacy against domestic violence. Fundraisers, social media campaigns, and awareness events honored her life and warned others to pay attention to the subtle signs of jealousy that can escalate. Her family, despite enduring unbearable grief, worked to create lasting change, speaking to young couples about communication, trust, and recognizing red flags. They emphasize that violence does not appear suddenly. It grows silently, often unnoticed until it is too late. The resort itself remained a quiet reminder of the tragedy. Staff recounted the horror of that morning for years, and though new guests occupied the rooms, in the aftermath, the full impact of the crime became clearer. The husband remained in prison, serving a life sentence for a murder that had stunned the nation. Court documents, psychological reports, and media coverage painted a chilling portrait of a man consumed by jealousy and control. Experts explained how his mindset had been shaped over years, a dangerous combination of insecurity, entitlement, and obsession. The courtroom had revealed every detail: the planning, the violence, and the desperate escape attempt. Yet even with justice served, the pain could not be undone, and the ripple effects continued to touch everyone connected to the tragedy. The victim's family carried the weight of loss every day. Friends, relatives, and even strangers reached out, expressing sorrow and offering support. Her story became a cautionary tale, discussed in schools, counseling centers, and online forums. People spoke of the danger of ignoring early warning signs in relationships and the importance of addressing controlling behavior before it escalates. The tragedy became a symbol, a reminder that love can be twisted by fear and possessiveness, and that what seems normal on the surface can conceal deep and destructive emotions. Media outlets continued to analyze the case, often highlighting the chilling contrast between the couple's public image and the reality of the crime. The honeymoon that had begun with excitement and promise was forever linked to fear, violence, and loss. True crime documentaries, articles, and podcasts ensured the story would not be forgotten, emphasizing both the danger of unchecked jealousy and the importance of vigilance in relationships. Ultimately, the case left an indelible mark on everyone involved. The resort reopened, guests returned,